helicopter that was flying up without any change in its power or in the pitch which we use to go up and down, suddenly lost height.
Ntino ma shatale kokko we no me tro se satale huhu no ba se set na TV su no yen satale huhu no yen atra ye wo de sensa ye wo de bia no ne bosoma wo
say ebeka ya on the 6th August 2025 this year military and Air Force plane bi ekonya accident Ghana for empany for any soldier for makumako enwotwe 8 ehwere omnkwa na we akoya de a daman for akuma so di for be hyenkom ewo ho bebere na answers ene di entia plane konya accident no abededi saranso na sebeka ya Kwame Ato Kwame Ato the fighter and the ono wetima police for bunku todwi no ubeka ya nansin yekobo no pa ema ye woro no ho nyina wantrefo wasan aka no ho bi afi yenko ensem no mu ghanainntv mpacho mesere so be subscribe like share and leave a comment efama me ubeka ya on the 6th of August 2025 ena plane bi ekonya crash ema inpuma kumako 8 na soja for ene you can say presidential appointees bi no mni ade eka ho a obo ehwere omnkwa ministers bi eka ho na we ne eba ye no ena na imu ehye nkoma hodo se bonsam bi ena betewiem ebi se ebi kura kan ya kopem se omo de hye ye papa John Dramani Mahama se ono na aye ebi kura ye se omo beto aba no sacrifice omo ye no ho aseda eno no enei ena empanifo ye be kai a ye papa John Dramani Mahama asem ni siye no oti committee research committee se omo hwehwe nsem ni mu se de be ye behunu de ntie ene kwan poten a enam so a ema plane no enya accident ma ya hwere adofo akudam a etisi na eno no ena empanifo no tena ase no de wo so mo ye no omo ye ni nyina awie ama de nam so ma plane no enya akwanhia no empanifo de atodwa na de ba ko ma metimi asiso a kire no se omuhu dade bi anase bibia etse boat ana not bi ewo mra plane no crash na shi wi ye no omuhu ni se no no nya ade a plane no enema no ka hye ye common ewo ho enti omuhu eno na nkyere mu kire se omo de ko China ena omo de ko fa mfidie mu de wura spiritual ne physical ne lemerical ne world ka mu eni ade ena ye be ka ena ye physical ne spiritual ena ensakal eba enti se no empanifo abekire mu kwan nam so ntia anase de cover by of the plane accident and plane crash na isima yehwere akudamfo a etise no yenti Captain Paul Foji ana Fojo Captain Paul Fojo on the committee na ye papa ete ye no enimo de ye enhwehwe ni mu anase enhwehwe mu edefa ensem no ho ensem sei no de tubia
Any potential human causes, we also examine the qualifications, experience and competence of the crew. The captain has a postgraduate certificate in safety and accident investigation from Cranfield University, UK in 2024. The captain was a qualified FAA, that's the Federal Aviation Administration, commercial and instrument rated pilot from Bristol Academy, Florida, USA in April 2015, 10 years ago. Within the Ghana Air Force, he was recategorized in March 2025 as a Cat C pilot. That is, a pilot qualified to be a captain on the helicopter, the Z9 helicopter. And he had a green instrument rating. In the Air Force, they have gradings for pilots, categories for pilots from A to D. D being, depends on what you call high and low, D being for the initial, sort of, and then you go all the way to A. It's interesting to note that for quite a while, and as at now in the Air Force, the highest category is Cat C. So the pilot was totally competent to be flying this plane. The co-pilot was also a qualified FAA commercial and instrument rated pilot from Bristol Academy, Florida, and he qualified in April 2023. In December 2024, he was recategorized within the Ghana Air Force as a Category D pilot on helicopter type with a white instrument rating. To further rule out any potential human causes, we examined the medical and psychological records of the crew. A review of the medical and personal records revealed no known medical or psychological conditions in the captain, co-pilot, or technician at the time of flight. All three were described by witnesses as calm, prepared, and professional during the pre-flight activities. Fatigue or medication was not considered to have materially affected their performance on the day of flight. Now to the sequence of events. The flight departed Accra under visual flight rules in marginal weather. The flight to Brofuyedro was uneventful. Brofuyedro is approximately 90 miles from Accra, about 10 miles from Obuasi. As the flight approached Obuasi, visibility deteriorated rapidly due to mist and low clouds. At 9:56, the crew entered IMC, which is Instrument Meteorological Conditions. To the layman, it is they flew into clouds because they no longer could stay away from the clouds, so they flew into clouds and transitioned to IFR. Now, IFR is Instrument Flight Rules. So what it means is they now transitioned from navigating using visual cues to now navigation solely on the aircraft's instruments. The crew then initiated a climb to cross terrain that they were aware of. They initiated the climb to cross the terrain. Seconds before impact, the crew stated that they could see the high ground below, so they had gone over it. Suddenly thereafter, the helicopter that was flying up without any change in its power or in the pitch which we use to go up and down, suddenly lost height and impacted a ridgeline at about 1370 feet above sea level. And this was about 6.5 miles from the destination, and this happened at 9:58. Is what the planned track had been. The purple line is what the aircraft actually flew. And that took place because it was avoiding clouds and so on and ended up where it was. Now to our findings. The helicopter was airworthy, but it lacked additional safety enhancements. For instance, the terrain awareness warning system. Now, you know, the terrain awareness warning system, for instance, is predictive. So what it does is it tells you, warns you, it gives you a better picture of the situation and puts the pilots in a better, it gives them, puts them in a position to make better judgments, to be able to see everything and be able to foretell if there are any things that could possibly create a problem. But they lack the additional safety enhancements required for the weather phenomenon over that terrain. There was adverse weather, there was limited visibility, there was rising rugged terrain, with this terrain induced complicating factors, and there were no ground-based navigational route aids en route. The investigation would like to say that from everything they gathered, the emergency response was very timely. The fact that these first responders managed to get to the site in about 2 hours was remarkable because the terrain has very steep slopes. It was raining. It was slippery. So it wasn't the easiest thing to do. When we went to the site, it was also raining and it was very slippery. And we struggled using sticks and everything to try to get up there. So looking at everything, we would say very confidently that the emergency response was very timely. The investigation determined that the accident was caused by the sudden loss of altitude and lift due to downdraft. This loss of altitude without change in power or pitch altitude is consistent with downdraft associated with changing environmental conditions over high terrain. In our findings also, we said there's limited national navigational capacity, a capability for en route and remote area weather services. We also looked at training and realized that the Air Force doesn't have much simulator training. Looked at flight monitoring and realized that there was no flight data monitoring also taking place. For flight following and tracking of aircrafts, we realized that it was also not there. There's no secondary surveillance radar, no automatic dependent surveillance broadcasts, or any other real-time tracking of aircraft. Our safety recommendations. There is a definite need to modernize the fleet of the Ghana Air Force. We have recommended that the Air Force acquire modern aircraft with terrain avoidance warning systems and modern navigation systems. That the aircraft should have cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorders, which are the audiovisual capable types. That the Air Force should invest in simulators for recurrent training. That they contract certified aviation weather provider or providers, and that Ghana as a nation should try to have en route navigational aids, especially in remote areas. The Air Force should seriously consider establishing flight data monitoring and en route tracking systems. And finally, we believe that they need to acquire ground support equipment, modernize what they have. In conclusion, the helicopter accident was an unfortunate and sudden weather-related accident. Implementing the safety recommendations will prevent the reoccurrence of future accidents. At this time, before I take any questions, I just want to give a few acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge the efforts and the support that the team had from the National Security Secretariat, led by the National Security Coordinator. It made what was a really difficult job for us much easier to do and encouraged us to do and persevere to come up with these results.
I know a lot of Ghanaians will be curious to know if the investigative committee listened to the audio recordings, of the helicopter. And I want to find out if indeed you listened, if it's possible to give us an idea of what happened in that moment. And then the second question, you talked about modernizing the fleet of the Ghana Armed Forces. I know right after the incident, there were calls to modernize the fleet, and this revelation is definitely going to reignite the calls, especially also coming on the back of recent discoveries about the presidential jet. I know there are investments. There are plans to inject $1 billion to retool the security agencies. As an expert, I want to find out how fast should we do this and which areas should we look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions, please? Yeah, courage. Yeah.
Komla Kulicha, I work at Media General. What was the sudden cause of the loss of altitude for the aircraft, and also the fact that there was postponement in the airworthiness of the helicopter? One, was there an understanding why the Ghana Air Force postponed the initial maintenance of the Z9, and what was the reason behind this?
Thank you very much. Any other questions, please? Okay, so Captain Fojo would answer these, after which we'll come back for another round of questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. Yes, we listened to the CVR. We listened to it several times. And it is part of what informed us of what caused the accident. And for modernization of the fleet, we think it should be done immediately. Tomorrow is not fast enough. As soon as the country can afford and do it, we should do it, because it would help the Air Force with this core mandate, part of which is to fly dignitaries all over the country. And I think we owe it to ourselves as a nation to make sure that we have aircraft fit for purpose, aircraft that are the highest technology, to make sure that everything is very, very safe. Yeah. To the sudden loss of altitude, I'm sure it was in one of the slides. When you over rugged territory, that's over terrain, dependent on the steepness and so on and so forth, it's very easy to have turbulence. It's caused by eddies and rotors. It's an aviation phenomena, right? And you have updrafts, you have downdrafts. And even interestingly, even above the ridge, you can still have downdrafts coming. And it's not, it's a phenomena, it's an aviation phenomena that unfortunately they fell into. They were very unfortunate, but it's a phenomenon that they fell into. And because there cannot be any other reason for that sudden loss of altitude for a plane climbing with power, with a pitch attitude, right? Because you see, the flight data recorder, to just help you understand the whole thing, the flight data recorder records the last 10 hours of a flight. The cockpit voice recorder records the last 2 hours of a flight. The flight data recorder, this particular one of this helicopter, records 93 parameters every second. The 93 parameters is made up of 48 analog parameters and 45 switch positions. So, looking at the flight data report, you know where all the switch positions are, you know what the height of the plane was, you know the exact position of, you know it time bound. So, what we are saying is from informed data. It's not that we've just conjectured something. We have the data, we've looked at it, and that is how come we've come with the conclusions we've come up with. I hope I've answered. Then the last one, the postponement of the maintenance. It's industrial practice, it's operational. In the airlines, it's done. Air Force doing it, there's nothing wrong with it. It's accepted practice. So there's nothing to it. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
Yamamunya yako emamudem ni fadue yesrese otwedi ampo Nyankopon emfa omokra ensie eye na onyame kopon emmo ye ho ban na ommo yasrafo ene yempanifo ne akontufo nyina ho ban yempese yebesan ayeden atibiem se eye mfumso se yeden no yempese yebesan atibiem enti otwedi ampo emmo yempanifo yankasa ene nipa nyina ho ban se de be yakwanhye bi atise die empare ye eye de nipa de obewu nanso wuya o se die awurade ma no empare ye we a message if we ghanainntv to the world and Ghana as a whole. Kwame Ato a yes or no fighter ah yeah afi omkochi no gua no dum na ni so dum ne hwo a dum ne bibia ma mo bo ne ho deja ene ade man be ye deja no wase ama ne ho me so ai ne ye wo san tete warning e bo nkrofo bi din bo last year din se ne ye wo chi obi odi ti be hye na tadim ene ade yenti Kwame Ato nsensem na okeka no after say you dum no
only one God. Only Baba.
Only one day, Mugu.
Yes. Obi aboa. Kai. Akwa na oye video na. O fe no senkra. Pascal. Alasagbo. O message never no. Pascal dey wa resign, wa surrender. Never ni abre. Nti no ma shata le kokko we no. Me tro say. Shata le hu no ba se set na TV su no. Yen shata le hu no yen atra ye wo de sense ye wo de bia no ne bosom awom. Catch your play. Asia wo hu bi ko da. Ya di utri ba bo ha se utri. Ya di utri ba sha. Wo bo sun sa de hu we. Ya di utri ba sha wa dan utri pa se akoko. Kai. Oh, metua oh. Oh, Alazagbo so ha o ya small boy. O come ke 5 billion. Oh, so chi na ba bom young bro. O ya be ma. Oh, guys, no ya dey. Ah, no wa sire. O ya be ma. O so chi na ya dey. O ba bom young bro. Na o ba bia o jan hwe yi mpo na obi amfa buba bia mo watiri ko mo wan to baby kra kwa sia freshman like you. Who da fuom o? Fuom na o da no ba hwe yi. Pasia Pascal no dia de no hu no dia de no hu wi ase. Me san ka me kasa bi ma wo alada gboso wan na. O ne ti Pasia. O so ya o say MPP for me yan MPP ni o me yan dis ni pure pa Pasia. Ma chiro say wi ase bi o wi ase abo afunu. Me say we communicate on am say 5 billion unjina. Oh. Wo le Alazagbo ne sa Pascal no si amuma ya mo se mo no aso bi da kwase wo so ye the whole gan wo so ye the whole world wo ye hero na hero dey say you want to Boko Haram for what na dey na wo so Boko Haram for so me so bibia wa asase so agi se Yankopon wallahi kwase abeta na wo mu po wugina buro mu po na wo ye video on so wo ye kwase a wugina buro mu na wo ye video wo mu po ko mpo na wo ni dan wo dem o dan kuko buom na o sore na we dim kwasa asem kire obi a ono no wabo ne bra awie nti akoe ogina wo ne be compare me ankufo hu mo kwasia ya kasa te obi a wabo bra o nkasa te obi a wo kwasia mpeni ono so ya African hero ni sa akwa we aya temteme na on de bi obi a me ka chense me da bi obi a me de me hwehwe no demum wo so no wan hwe nsu ya wo so no wo be da sori u ba na wuti se no yen den eni ho ade am ntumi nyam fama no se nkan bi da kwasi ampanyi te se wa wudina brom ye vi
for me da se waje bre na fe wahwe videos ahodo ne nema ahodo a ye de bre wo no watie nkyiremu no no hunu de pese wo pese wo hunu ne de wo se wo de hunu e de fa ho eti bomodi an se de wo hwe ye about plane crash ye ene Kwame Ato ne nsensem ne de warning sa wa sha se e ma so e de ba no de wadwene e kire wo no fato comment section ho no na berepam no ye be peda ba kwa trase na o comment no ye read se wo kasa bia na se wo bibi case bia pese ya attend to a wo betim dia to comment section wo na we leave you contact e wo ho ye be contact wo na fei ya to aso medin e de na asare brema aha e Ghanainntv medewasi